Our guest tonight is Mark Buff Bagwell. How you doing, man?
Good, buddy. How are you guys?
Can't complain. We got you on the phone, my friend. I'm already blowing smoke. That's my gig. The big news recently was the release of your new docu-shoot, The Good, the Bad, and the Buff, the Mark Bagwell journey. I saw the film. I enjoyed the candidness of it. It was a very great look at your life and your time in the business and who you are as a man. So for the fans who haven't seen it yet, how would you describe the movie, and why did you feel like now was the right time to release it?
Well, you know what? To be honest with you, and you have to excuse me, guys. I'm a little under the weather. This weather's changing, and I've been all over the place here lately. I was glad that I was able to do this today. Truthfully, my life has, of course, I've been fortunate enough to be under the camera practically my entire life, and we had thought there was a lot of unanswered questions out there. So that being said, my manager got with me and said, hey, for a long time people have been doing these shoot-style videos. Let's do something a little different. Fortunately for me, my mother had filmed us my entire life, from Christmases and birthdays, and where my older brothers, they would complain about it. I was just a ham for the camera. So, you shoot 40 years later, and we've kept all that, had it transferred over to DVD, and my manager knew that I'd had all this footage. And Nigel McGuinness, who you guys may be familiar with, I got introduced to Nigel, and we thought we would do a Barbara Walters type sit-down interview. But as we told my story, we could add that B footage. And, it'd been kind of a reviving time for Mark Bagwell's career. After the accident, I'd had, some time off for rehabilitations and things like that. And we just needed to have some injections. We've called it the next 15, the next 15, the next 15. And what can we do to expand Mark Bagwell's career? So, we decided to go for it. We've been working on it for probably a year and a half now. And, we just felt that we could take something that had been done for a while and reformat it, kind of come out with our own category, calling it a docu-shoot, which is a part sit-down interview along with B footage. And we expanded over an hour and 45 minutes of my life. So it's just the right time and place.
Mike Chiari?
Yeah, well, there's always been a lot of speculation and rumors out there regarding your brief stint with WWE. And you said recently on Stone Cold Steve Austin's podcast that you believe Jim Ross was responsible for your release from the company. And he's since responded and said he didn't make that decision. So what do you make of his response? And what do you think JR or WWE's motivation was to get rid of you so quickly?
Well, first of all, I actually had read, had it sent over to me. Jim, the way he responded, and I can respect the way he responded, but I think he didn't want to watch what I had to say. Therefore, he was responding to something that he really didn't know what he was responding to be honest with you. I wasn't saying Jim didn't have the job. His job didn't require him to let people go. What I'm saying is I think he's looking at it strictly WWE terms. Let's go back. You guys do a roundtable discussion here, correct? Well, everyone knows that many years ago on the roundtable, and I thought Jim and I were always great, if you go back and watch that roundtable special, and I encourage everyone to do so, everyone was talking about heat seekers in the business. And during that time, if you'll go notice, Jim Ross kept trying to get his story out, but someone else would cut him off. And it wasn't to protect me by no means. I think they just felt that, they had something they wanted to get out. And, of course, at the very end of it, Jim sits down and proceeds to bury me and tells a story about how my mother called in and canceled me on some house shows. And it was just the whole setup of things, guys. If you go back, I think that, first of all, I was kind of put out there. I'd had some heat that was coming into the business from WCW. Zero heat with WWE, just maybe perception was that I could be a pain in the ass or whatever the case may be. Well, as I'm coming in there, remember, guys, there ain't but one company now. I'm shaking hands, I'm kissing babies, I'm walking on eggshells. Even though I was known that I had a job, there were some things that happened with me and Shane Helms when we first got there, and I just felt that I had to really, watch my P's and Q's. So I felt that me and Booker were kind of set up a little bit by doing the invasion angle with him to us main event and having kind of a horrible match. And, when I look back even on it, it's not as bad as it felt that day. But that being said, it just felt like there was going to be a setup and a fall guy. And, I had a pretty decent position. And, I never claimed that I was a big main event star or anything. But, I did, me and Sting are the only two guys who did the entire run at WCW. The only two, besides some office personnel. So, evidently I was, worth using or added some value to the product. And, came into WWE not feeling that way at all. Felt that I had to kind of re-earn my spot. As a matter of fact, I gave Vince back money to show him that I was a team player. Fast forward up to Jim Ross. All right, I'm gone. I'm still trying to make a living on the scene. And, guys, let's be honest here. Somebody tells that your mama called you off from work. I mean, what's that say about a man? That's just burying somebody. And the truth is, it never happened. And that ain't my opinion. That ain't Jim Ross's opinion. Like I said, me, Jim Ross, and God all know that it happened. And I even had my manager come to me and say, well, let's take, for instance, what if she called? If she called and you didn't know about it, what if that were the case? Because there's always an opportunity. Something out of my realm could have happened, me not knowing about. My mother, even though she was involved in WCW television or whatever, by the way, never made a dime. Everything you ever saw her do that people give her crap about, she did it for free. She did it to help the product. She did enjoy her time on there. She was an older lady. She was just having a good time. Just like if your mom was asked to do something, she would do the same thing, more than likely, I would think. So, my mom's taking diamond cutters at, 50-something years old and not making a dime for it. So, with her, even had she done something like that, she would have called to tell me, hey, by the way, I spoke to Jim and they didn't need you for these house shows. She would have worked both ends of the spectrum had she done it. She was sitting up in the stands the night they fired me. She had no clue. So I don't know where Jim got off saying that my mother called me off. Brother, those were drive shows for Buff Bagwell. I mean, you're talking about, I believe it was Columbus, Georgia, and Birmingham. I lived in Georgia. Those are drive shots for me. And we've got Phillips Arena coming up for Monday Night Raw right in Ted Turner's backyard. Me and Booker felt we could go into there and, and I think that they wanted the reaction of the fans to be negative. I think they were still in that war mentality, right? Okay, WCW was the bad guys, and yet we are forced to play in their backyard. Now, when you go to Phillips Arena, and that's the home of WCW, I don't care if it's a Monday Night Raw crowd or not. Those are people from Georgia and that part of the land. Me and Booker's going to get a pop. It never got a chance to happen. As a matter of fact, even the Tacoma show, no one ever knew this, but as I'm walking out from the back, I'm talking about literally my music's playing, Shane McMahon walks up to me and goes, hey, by the way, don't look at the cameras. Go. Now, you guys know that's 80% of my job. I go out, look at the cameras, flex, pose, boom, 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 smile, hit a blockbuster, go home or get pinned. When someone all of a sudden goes to you and says, hey, by the way, don't look at the camera, that's Austin told me that's like telling him not to kick, punch, or shoot birds. So that's why I felt, me and Booker to this day felt like there was something strange on how they did that in Tacoma. And back to Jim Ross, hate to get get away from that. I kind of was asked two things, but, with Jim, I felt that he buried me after I was still trying to make a living. And that just, adds that perception because, of course, my story had never been told. I never got a chance to answer that. At the very end of the show, They say, Bus Mama called him off, and, oh, yeah, by the way, guess who brought him in the business? Missy Hyatt. And they're like, oh, that explains it all. Well, that explains what? Missy Hyatt helped out a lot of guys in the business, and, at one time she kind of was the first lady of wrestling. So, I have nothing bad to say about Missy. So I hope that answers your question. If I missed something, tell me.
No, that's good. BG?
Yeah, not many people remember World Wrestling All-Stars, but it had a lot of buzz when it started. I remember watching the debut show, and I was excited to see so many familiar faces that I was a fan of from WWF and WCW, such as yourself, Jeff Jarrett, and many more. Considering how much talent was involved, why do you think the company wasn't more popular and didn't last longer?
Okay, well, of course, that's Andrew McManus, and he did. He had a lot of talent being able to go overseas, and I think he took care of it at the right time. Here's the honest opinion, and and I wish that when you get older, you look at things in a different perspective. We're just coming off TV. I just had got fired. Literally, by the way, the day that I got fired is the day that I got called for World Wrestling All-Stars. Literally, I mean, it all happened within a 24-hour period. And I think I maybe had a no-compete or some salary paid for a month, but their tour wasn't starting until after that. To be honest with you, I would have went, I don't want to necessarily get the numbers, and I might be a little wrong on them anyways, I would have went over there for a third of what they offered. But when someone offers you that, and you don't know if it's going to, if it's long-term, short-term, I think if they would have had someone that would have booked better for them on the financial end of things, he could have ran multiple shows. What he paid over a couple of tours there, he probably could have gotten a couple of years out of that. And then if talent would have watched it grow, I think then, he would have been able to lessen his budgets. But truthfully, it didn't last because of money, just like anything else. He went very gung-ho. We were drawing great crowds. But the talent roster and the money that he was offering and putting over there for people, just didn't make sense for long-term success.
Well, you have plenty of experience in the business, WCW, WWE, even went to TNA for a little while. So you know the value in competition within the wrestling industry. Now, this is a broad question, but do you feel the business will ever reach a level it did during the Monday Night War again, or is that it? Or did we see the peak and now we're kind of just going to go in lull periods and high periods, but never reach that level again?
To be honest with you guys, I think that, everybody can have their opinion. I think personally, if WWE, when they bought WCW, if they would have kept that tight-lipped and let Shane look like he was really running it and ran it as two separate entities, I think wrestling would have stayed hot for a lot longer. Maybe Shane should have actually bought it. Do I think there's an ability to have – there's probably more wrestling and more talent out there right now than there ever was, but there's only, very limited places to work. I think that it can, sure it can, because everything goes through phases. Wrestling's been around for 100 years. It's always going to have peaks and valleys. Will it ever be that hot again? I don't know, but to say that we as human beings and as free thinkers and as talent, I'll tell you what has to be done. It has to be put into a real competitive level. Competition creates business. It's, truthfully, in the back of Vince's mind, he's so far ahead of TNA right now. They're not even in his thoughts probably. But if the right people and the right minds get in there and get the right type of programming, I think we're going to see a lot of things change as television opens up more to a free market on the internet and things of that nature. I think people are going to have more selections and choices. Now, that may saturate the business, but it could captivate the business at a cheaper rate than it used to be. If you weren't on a major station on a primetime night, you were kind of screwed. And I do think that it's the business itself can go back there again. I'm not sure if the right people are in place to ever get there right now.
Mike Chiari?
Well, you were a big part of the NWO, and it remains a topic of conversation among wrestling fans today. Many think that the NWO is one of the greatest stables of all time. But one criticism I think it often gets is that it grew too large and became a little bit too convoluted. So do you believe the NWO was handled as well as it could have been? Is there anything that could have been done to increase its longevity or maybe give it more sustained success?
Oh, absolutely. It was definitely handled wrong at the end, and that was just where people were reaching. You had so much talent. What happened was is you had a situation to where if you think, now you got to realize something, guys. Back then, okay, you've got WCW, WWE. You virtually got two strong places to work. Sure, there's work overseas and whatnot, but other than that, that's your two strongholds. Well, basically, what happened in that aspect is that, WCW, whether it be Eric Bischoff or people in his ear or whatever, it was a talent hunt. Basically, you were just going to sign talent. There were guys. I would walk into the gym. Lex Luger, I, Sting, we'd walk into the gym at Main Event Fitness. There would be guys, and this is a straight shoot, boys. This wasn't a rib. They would come up and shake our hands and hug us, give us gift cards, buy us dinner, because they were under contract and never on television. They weren't working. They were getting paid to just go to the gym and be ready if they got called up. I'm talking about for years. There was talent that never even made it on television, or maybe a Saturday night program or some house shows, to go work on character development and maybe just go be enhancement talent, for other guys. But they would come up and literally go, "Thank you guys, you're out doing the work." And it sounded funny, but we were out working and keeping other contracts relevant that never even made it on television. So they were hiring so much talent that the talent that they did have on TV is like, what do you do with them? You're paying these guys. They've got some star quality about them. Once again, talent not being handled correctly, it growing way bigger than any one man or one team of group of people could handle. It just was. We had the most horrific merchandising in the world, but yeah, and that's what Vince captivated off of. So, there was enough free ideas going on in WCW that made it work and made NWO super hot. But, let's be honest. I mean, even that idea, very, very seldom do you ever find an idea in wrestling that's not been taken and revamped or, redone. I mean, for a guy, the only person I ever knew that invented a move, was Jake Roberts, and now he gets used in the middle of a match, where it used to be a finish. And I tell Jake when I've spoke with him, I said, well, feel good about that. You're the only one that can finish somebody with that. Everybody else uses it 2 minutes into a match. So my point is that, yes, it was mishandled. There was too many people. When I did it, it was kind of cool because they had put out Eric had put out the deal, hey, you got 30 days to join. You're either with us or against us. And I was so, to be honest with you, I was so thankful and kind of blessed with the opportunity to go be that first guy, at least, to make that move, to kind of go jump, leave Scotty laying in the ring and to do that. And when Kevin asked me, hey, do you want to do this thing, it was long before, a million people were jumping in it, so I felt great about that. But, of course, like anything, they started relying on it for everything. Every turn had to be that way. Or, let's set up a group and, let's set up a group with the Hispanic wrestlers or whatnot. And, so everybody was still placating off of that deal. And, and like I said, and I tell it in my story, a lot of people don't realize Sting was offered the position Hogan got first and turned it down. And a lot of people don't know that. And, of course, I looked and said, well, he knows what he's doing. So, well, what do I know? And, of course, if you really realize, during the Monday Night Wars even, Sting spent 90% of his career in the rafters. I go back and look, brother, and I'm not dogging Sting. I'm just telling you, at a point where, if you go back and look, when wrestling was at its hottest, Sting spent 90% of his career in the rafters. And by the time that it was starting to slow down and they were catching up, that's when he kind of came out and was doing his thing. But you go back and watch, when it was really hot and NWO was really rolling, the biggest baby face in the company. And, of course, that was a time, too, when the prolific heel groups were really the baby faces, and the baby faces were kind of the heels. except for your most, loyal older fan. All the young kids wanted to be the NWO. Nobody wanted to be, nobody wanted to paint their face and, eat their vitamins. They wanted to be part of the gang.
That's true. BG?
I enjoyed your run as a singles competitor, but you were also part of several entertaining tag teams. Was there one partner you enjoyed tagging with most, and any story that comes to mind from your run with him that you could share with us?
Let's see here. Well, I want to do a segue into something on the film, but then I'm going to go back to your question as well. Let's do it the other way. I really enjoyed, and I'm being honest here, with Too Cold, we broke in. It was fresh and new for me. We were able to do a lot of cool things. The WCW Tag Team of the Year, won my first belts. That was good. Everybody I was with added something to Mark Bagwell's career, which, of course, helped me to develop over time the Buff character. Scott Norton, that was fun. Vicious and delicious, to be honest with you. That's something that, might be on the back burner in a lot of people's minds, but I had a really good time, working with Scott and Dale Wilkes, the Patriot. I mean, all these guys I had a blast doing stuff with. There was some interesting stories that, with Scott and traveling over in Japan and things like that. I can tell you one time, and I won't go into the long version. I'll give you the short version. One night, I maybe had a few beers in me. Maybe I got a little bit of liquid courage because Scott Norton, was a pretty tough dude. And let's just say this way: we had our wives with us on a trip one night, and Scott Norton's wife was just, at that point in time, and I love her to death, but let's just say that there was an annoyance going on. And for some reason, I decided I was going to threaten to slap Scott Norton's wife. And this is all of us, of course, been drinking, having a good time. And I really thought at that moment, I'm about to die. I'm going to make a mistake here. And but you know what? Honestly, he actually shifted in. He made the hot tag with me and came in as my partner and diffused the situation and kind of took my side. But, I mean, I really did have a good time with everybody. And something that blew my mind that I didn't know is right before we did the interview section of a portion of The Good, the Bad, and the Buff, my manager, as well as Nigel, informed me that just a few weeks earlier, they had found some footage from a shoot interview that Too Cold Scorpio had did. Now, mind you, I just saw him a few weeks before this, and we had actually tagged together kind of as a anniversary re-emergence, reunion type thing, and hugged him. Everything was good. I actually even gave him a couple of copies of some DVDs of him and I's, greatest matches together. But I watched this shoot interview, boys, and I'll be honest with you, what he had to say in there, and it's in the film, it blew my mind. He called me every cocksucker in the book. He said he poked my wife in the face on an airplane over a seat that I told him to get out of. And, brother, one thing about me is, I always tried to treat people with respect. I never was a guy that was going to, push his chest around or anything like that. We were all traveling together, supposedly on some flight overseas. I told him to get out of an airplane, and he persisted to tell me, who was I, and that he poked my wife in the nose and told her that if she wanted to fuck a real man, he could show her why he was really called Too Cold. And let me tell you something, guys. I don't give a shit if you're the biggest pussy in the world. If a man is poking your wife in the face on a full field airplane with pro wrestlers on an international flight, and some guy standing up telling your wife that he can fuck her better than you can, and he's poking her in the face, let me just ask you guys this. Do you suppose you would have heard about that story?
You would think so.
Because there would have been arrests.
Would have made a world press release because he and I would have went out the fucking exit door while we were in air. So when I heard this, I was like, what the fuck is he talking about? You know, what is he on? And I had never even saw this. They show it to me during the filming. They literally show it to me and then go right back live with my response. And I had never saw it before. I knew that it was out there, but they wanted to wait until I had saw the clip and then get my rebuttal. So that's what they did. That's what I did. And let me tell you something. You want to see some real deal situations? It's on the film, and I promise you, you've never saw anything more real than this in your life.
Oh, good. We got one round of questions left. We'll fly through these. During your career, you have squared off against some of the best. Who do you feel helped you put on your best matches, and who had the biggest influence on your career outside the ring?
Outside the ring, hands down, Missy Hyatt. Buff Bagwell would not be where he is today had I not listened to Missy. Missy told me early on, don't worry about the money. Shake everybody's hands. Do what you're told. And the money will come. She really wisened and smarted me up to the business. She was a big deal in the business at the time. Missy Hyatt you got to realize something when you're saying outside the business. I wasn't in the business till I met Missy Hyatt. I'm training, getting into the business. Even though she was part of it, she definitely influenced me pre-business going into the business. Someone that really helped me while I was inside the business, I think just out of respect and fear of him, because he was a man's man, was Rick Rude. I respected Rick Rude. He was a man's man. I've said this many times. He's the kind of man who could shave and 2 seconds later hair would grow back. He was just about business, and you never quite knew in the ring with him, is this, we still cool? Is everything still good here? So Rick Rude definitely influenced me a lot inside the business. And, and it isn't that we were big buddies and pals. We got along great. But, he really kept me on my toes, and it made me really respect the business side of things, because I wasn't the kid that grew up wanting to be a pro wrestling. Pro wrestling found me. I didn't find pro wrestling. And I think that's where some of my early on heat came from, is because it was something that I was a good athlete. I was a pretty good-looking kid, and, a lot of people hated on me for that, but I couldn't help how I was born. Now, once I got into the business, I fell in love with the business, and I was all about the business, and Rick Rude helped me become that way.
Well, a quick follow-up to that. If you could pick anyone to wrestle against for a retirement match, who would it be and why?
One person to pick for a retirement match. Man, I'll tell you what, it's just so many people. I think, honestly, and it was a good friend of mine, if I could work somebody again today, that would be a retirement match for Buff Bagwell. I think it maybe would be. Are we talking about younger working currently today, or anybody?
Tomorrow, if they say you gotta have a retirement match tomorrow, and you could pick anybody living right now who could still go with you, who would you pick?
Oh, Steve Austin.
Okay, there you go.
Steve Austin.
Talk about a draw. That'd be a draw. Mike Chiari?
Well, I mean, yeah, he would be the majority of it, but that's the reason why I would work with him as well, too. I'm not stupid, but Steve and I had a hell of a lot of tag matches together, him and Brian Pillman and me and Scorpio. I mean, we worked a lot of tag matches with those guys, and Steve and I always were friends and respected each other. So, of course, it'd be a good match, and it'd be a good draw.
Don't underestimate. I'd have a sign that says, I came here for Buff Bagwell. Don't worry, I'd have the Buff Bagwell sign.
Oh, well, I appreciate it. And that's something else, too, guys. When you go back, and I never saw it until the film, when Vince is in there doing the thumbs up, thumb down deal. Now, I never had saw that because, I was in Panama City Beach, Florida, when this is all happening. But if you listen and they go through a whole list of guys, Buff Bagwell got a pretty good pop. When he asked the crowd there, Lex Luger up, Lex Luger down. when they go to Buff Bagwell, and I'm proud of that because that meant that I meant something to those people, and I got a pretty good pop out of it. So, that made me feel good. We're all human. We still like to get over with the crowd.
Mike Chiari?
A lot of fans look back and wonder how you might have fit in WWE and how they would have possibly used you had your stay not been so short with the company. Were you ever given any indication of what storylines or feuds you might have been involved with, or is there anything you would have liked to have done in that respect?
Well, of course, everybody wants to see how Buff Bagwell could have, evolved, or at least I'm not saying everybody, but at least I did. At the current time, bro, we just felt, hey, you guys are the invasion. We're going to play off the enemy thing. We're going to put you and Booker out there and kind of roll with it and go. And, of course, you're always wondering because as time changed, they were very good about being able to connect to an audience and change and be able to do small. And I think I was pretty good. If you go look at Marcus Alexander Bagwell, who broke into the business, to Mark Bagwell, the tag team guy, and the evolution of Buff, I think that I always did small increments. If you go look at that young kid and then where Buff Bagwell ended up at the end, I think I could have very well fit in there to be able to make those changes as generations of fans change a little bit and times change. I think I would have been perfect for that because I was always open-minded. I wasn't scared to make an ass out of myself. I didn't care if I was a gesture. I didn't have to be the man. I just wanted to be part of the team. And I can tell you this: it would be very hard today for someone to go out and wrestle and wear a top hat to the ring. I got a top hat over, brother.
That it doesn't seem like an easy job. In today's WWE, they got over a trombone. So I say in the same vein, I feel like your top hat's in that same vein.
Absolutely. You know how many guys, promoters, they book me, and then the first things out of their mouth is you have the top hat, and I'm like, yes, bro. It's got its own case, and it flies with me on Delta.
Awesome. All right, PG, final question?
You mentioned Lex Luger earlier in the show, and I enjoyed your run with him as totally buffed. It made perfect sense. Yeah, it made perfect sense given your physiques, and you two are part of the reason I started to go work out when I was a teenager. It's one of the first things that comes to my mind when someone mentions Buff Bagwell. Is there one moment or match that stands out to you the most from your career?
Well, what's that stands out for me, it's kind of a little bit of a two-part deal here. I'll make it as quick as possible. But, what happened is I was still working singles matches, and something that really gave me an opportunity for a major push, to be honest with you, was I was working Chris Benoit in the singles matches. And all of a sudden, when you're working with Chris Benoit, who was a very technical wrestler, they had never saw Mark Bagwell do the up and overs, the fish out of waters, the reversals, the pins, the boom, boom, boom. And I go to the back, and they're like, oh, my God, we didn't know you could do any of this. And I'm like, well, nobody ever really asked or gave me an opportunity. Chris Benoit gave me an opportunity when I worked with him to show that I could go with someone like him. And instantly, Vader was in the back, and Vader said, it would be good, Bagwell and Scorpio. So a match that I did with Chris Benoit to show that I could do some of the more aerial maneuvers, Scorpio and I were doing tag team moves, kind of what the Hardy Boys ended up doing later on. We were doing some of those type of things, way back, and that gave me my break into my tag team run. So that match really did, before then I was getting beat up by the Dangerous Alliance and, Sting would come out and make a save or whatever. But that match with Benoit gave those guys an opportunity to, give me an opportunity to run the tag. And then, of course, the match that sticks out the most in my career would be the tag match where I break my neck with Scotty Steiner because, of course, it brought a lot of attention on me. But it also, I felt that WCW really, really dropped the ball. They really could have took it, and and they were trying to be reality-driven wrestling. And I'm like, come on, guys, follow me to surgery, do these things. And it wasn't about me. It wasn't like how to get myself over. It was that you take advantage of this, take advantage of me breaking my neck on live television. take advantage of doing that. And even if you want me to flip and go bad on the people afterwards, at least put some in, put some investment into it. And I think that, that broken neck on television, to make that kind of a comeback, and and they really didn't even focus on that as well as I thought they could have. And I would have said the same thing had it been anybody who had broken their neck on television. I just happened to be the one that it happened to.
Well, a huge thank you to Buff Bagwell for coming on the show. Check out his new movie, The Good, The Bad, and The Buff, The Mark Bagwell Journey. Tell the fans where they can see the film and where they can support you.
Well, what you guys can do, you can go purchase the film, the docu-shoot, at realbuffbagwell.com. Just go to the store there, and we're distributing it on our own, and it's an independent project, and I can tell you this, over 40 years of home footage, 8 hours of interviews, and a long weekend with a film crew on the road is all compiled into about an hour and 42, 43 minutes worth of film, and it really does show you the good, the bad, and the buff, the Mark Bagwell journey. So I think that everyone will enjoy it. It's something that's never been done in this kind of, format before, and I think they'll really enjoy it, guys.
Another thank you to Buff Bagwell. Good luck moving forward, sir.
Thank you very much, boys.